You're listening to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast, the show with a light-hearted look at the eventing world, all of the big event previews, reviews, and special guests, and of course, backed up with all of the key Echo Rating stats. Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast. Welcome to the Echo Ratings Eventing Podcast and a very special show for you listeners, because we have got a man on the show who has represented Team GB at no fewer than 18 major championships. I was adding them up and they just kept going and going and going. He has won 14 five-stars, which is more than any other rider in the world. William Fox-Pitt, welcome to the show.
Oh, hi guys. Yeah, showing my age, aren't I? More than this and more than that, just a few more years at it.
No, they're impressive numbers, Will, impressive numbers, but that's the main aim. Before we talk about a few of the highlights, can we go back to the very beginning in your childhood and sort of how you got into riding and your sort of start of your journey into eventing, really? Because that's kind of where it all started. So how did you know that you wanted to become an event rider?
It very much was part of our life. I was born into a horse-interested family. My parents had some racehorses. They enjoyed hunting. Both parents had ridden around Badminton and Burley. So we were surrounded by horses, and my mother was breeding horses. And I just loved all that right from the word go. I think even before I could ride of any significance, I just enjoyed, what was going on and helping with everything and just being involved. So it was very much in my blood. And I think really I just got as a teenager, got very into my hunting. Very, very lucky to hunt with my mother, and I really enjoyed, I think one Christmas holidays I can remember I hunted 16 days in one Christmas holiday. So goodness knows how the horses survived, but it was just what I loved doing. I just loved galloping, jumping, and thrusting with them all. And that, I suppose, taught me a lot about cross country, a lot about horsemanship, a lot about, tired horses, saving your horse, enjoying your horse. And I think then really I was into horses enough that my mother thought she wanted to encourage me, and she thought it would keep me out of trouble if I was involved in something that was serious. So she really bought me my first horse when I was 16, and he was a novice horse, but he took me round Windsor a few times, which is then the Junior National Championships, and he began to get me into it. He was a real goer, a real boy's horse, but he didn't clear the show jumps, so he was never going to win anything. But he used to jump all the cross-country jumps and teach me about just going. I can remember clearly he took me to the juniors when I was 15, 16 and 17. At 15, we knocked 5 fences down. 16, he knocked 6 fences down. And I can remember clearly when I was 17 and he was lame on the Sunday morning and we didn't present him, I was actually just hugely relieved I wasn't going to have 7 fences down. And I was lying second in the class, so it was a blow. But the relief when I came out of school and being told my horse was lame was like, thank God I haven't got to jump those show jumps. So I learned a lot about cross country as a young boy, and my last year in juniors sort of kick-started me. I think I never won much. I'd won, I can joke about it, but I was known for being for winning pink rosettes and for winning best boy prizes. That was my role as, I think, only boy. But in the pony club and associates, all that, I was very much the token boy, and I used to come fifth and win. They used to encourage boys, and therefore I was just known as best boy, which was quite humiliating. So to suddenly win a silver medal at the Junior Europeans in Rome, I think in 1987, I was suddenly thought, oh, I quite like getting a prize. I quite like that. That's all mine, and I'll enjoy that. And I think that really kick-started me as thinking, going to get more into it. So my mother encouraged me more, and I was very lucky because when I went to university, before I went to university, she said, "Well, if you don't go to university, I am not supporting you with the horses. You're on your own. But if you go to university, I will support you with your eventing." So that gave me no choice, but therefore to go to uni.
What did you study?
I studied French.
Okay.
It's the only thing I could do is speak French a bit, so that's what I did.
Okay.
And I went to London University and very much kept on with the riding, and the riding really fitted in. Well, the university fit in with the riding. And then what really kick-started me, two things. Was I got sponsored by Hackett,
right,
who are the men's outfitters from London, and they gave me some money. So suddenly I thought, oh, I'm earning some money. And in many ways, I was earning more money than lots of my schoolmates who were same age, but starting work in city and in London. And I was suddenly thinking, oh, I'm getting more than they are, and I'm doing better than him, and I'm doing what I love doing, so I'm going to carry on. And then I got sent a really amazing horse called Charker. Michael Turner sent me Charker. Michael Turner was a big eventing enthusiast. He had a lovely horse, and he was a very old-fashioned gentleman, and he wanted British, he wanted young, to encourage the young, and he wanted boy, because the boys were always the kind of underdogs.
Yeah.
So there was nobody else. So he sent me Charker. And that really kick-started my career, because Charker took me from being seventh for badminton the first year, took me to the senior Europeans in 93.
Okay.
And I think I'm right, because I won Burghley in 94 on the same horse.
Yes, you did. And that Burghley win was the first of your 5-star wins.
And that was kind of ridiculous, really. That should never have happened. I was absolutely green as grass, overhorsed, out of my depth, riding against the likes of Blythe and Toddy and Curran Dixon. And, yes, on form, I could have won, but certainly on nothing to do with my my rating or my position should I have won. So I won that, and suddenly thought, this is okay. I could retire now. I've won a 4-star. That'll do. And it really gave me good weight with my sponsors Hackett, and suddenly it was all big excitement and looking forward. So I think those two things really, getting Hackett as a sponsor, getting Charker, and winning Burghley in 94, just kind of suddenly made it all happen. Until then, I'd never really thought it was going to be my career. I just thought it was a stage I was grow out of.
But that was the moment that you sort of hooked and thought, no, actually, this is what I want to really do.
It was a moment at which nothing else was coming up that was any better. I wasn't spoilt for choice. I had other things in my mind, but there was nothing that was jumping out and saying, come and do this or go and do that. So I thought, well, I've got a good horse, I've got a good sponsor, so I can carry on. And for the first time in my life, my parents weren't paying for everything. And, it's quite a big moment as a young man to think that you're actually going it alone, and it's all going okay.
It was going pretty well. I mean, you say okay. Okay is a fair old understatement, actually, because you went to the Europeans in 95 as well, took a team gold, finished 5th individually. The Olympics in 96 was your debut at Olympic level. You were still fairly young. I think you were only 27. What was that experience like going to Atlanta?
I think to be going to Atlanta was an absolute crazy thought that I was actually going to Olympic Games. I was riding in a horse. I was going to America. It was kind of like I felt slightly like I was an actor, just been given a role. I've been given a role, and this was the kind of carry on. And obviously, Atlanta was a nightmare Olympics because it was so in the press with heat and humidity and worry and panic and horse welfare. And for the first time, I think, in our sport, had they really worried about how horses were going to perform in that humidity. So we got to Atlanta slightly panicking, as in, it was all so new. We had David Marlin from the Animal Health Trust, and you just really felt that you'd be lucky to be going home with your horse. So the fact we didn't come home with a medal at the time didn't matter because we all survived, but we did particularly badly across the board. I think we were a bunch of idiots. But I think that was because we were slightly on the backward foot. We didn't get there to attack. We got there to kind of defend and worry and kind of damage limit.
Do you think that had an impact then on how you approached future championships, though, in sort of channeling your mind in a different sort of direction and focusing on what you could focus on?
Experience. I don't think I thought too much. I think that's also, let's put it like that. But I don't think I'm not a big thinker. I'm more of a doer. Yes, I like thinking about horses and how they are and what's in their brain and psychology, but I'm not a big analyzer and worrier about what could and should and wasn't. I kind of put it in the back burner. What I've learned from that, we've just got to get on. We've got to be better, and we've got to improve. So from that point of view, I was kind of young enough that it's just I didn't know any different. It's just what we did. So, being nervous or being scared or being worried and being Olympics and being terrified didn't really come into it because I didn't know any different.
No.
So it was excitement. Of course it was. It was an honour to be in a team with Ian Stark, and it was seriously a bit of a dream that it happened all so quickly. And I was riding a good horse, and my horse should have gone better on the day, and it didn't work out. And you soon learn that in this sport, lots of things do go wrong, and you have to just compartmentalize them, learn from them, and move on. Not panic and undress yourself because of them.
Yeah, not focus on them. Can I ask you about another horse? You won Burghley again in 2002 on a horse called Highland Lad, but then came in the same year, a horse stepped up to 5-star level with a second place at Badminton by the name of Tamarillo, who was going to become one of your real stalwarts over the next few years. He was a quirky character. Tell us about him, because he became a massive part of Team Fox-Pitt and your successes throughout the early 2000s.
I always say, Tamarillo was my horse of a lifetime, I would say. I still look back and there's ifs and buts and if onlys, because he was such an amazing horse. And I think sometimes, things could have been done differently and done better, because he was probably the most talented horse eventing at that stage. Had the most ability. He was probably the quirkiest, the funniest temperament. He had weird little things. He was an Anglo-Arab, and he was not what I was used to riding, but he was the most extraordinary athletic beast that I ever rode. And the great thing about him is that, yes, he did take me to all the championships. Championships didn't really happen again. Sort of disappointing if I think about his championship record, because he should have been Olympic champion in Athens, but he broke his stifle in the cross country on a round where he flew around and didn't even know he hit a fence. But he was so lame he couldn't be presented the next day. He should have won Jerez and had a stupid trip out of the water up a step because I rode the fence too strong, because at the end of the day it had been causing trouble, and it had looked like the horse fence needed attacking, but of course it didn't need attacking on him. It would have been fine just to have ridden it normally. He could have won Aachen World Championships, but I had a stupid run out and a skinny fence everyone else jumped. So lots of silly things happened in his team career. Yes, he helped win medals, and he was always there or thereabouts. So yes, he won a silver medal at the Europeans, but I rather think he won badminton, he won Burghley, and he should have won quite a bit more. But that's how the cookie crumbled.
Yeah, what could have been. Talk to us about that badminton win, because by that point you'd been at sort of the top of the game for best part of it had been a decade since you first won Burghley. Was it obviously you'd gone to your second 5-star and won? Badminton took a little bit longer. Did that make that victory a little bit sweeter?
Yes, badminton was a funny one, wasn't it? Because badminton, again, it was early days, but I'd led badminton one year on Charka and failed the vet, I think. 95.
Okay.
So Chaka had been in the lead with a fence in hand in
Oh.
95, and we knew he had a little problem, but I had no idea he was lame. But it was just an absolute wrench that he never got to show jump. So Tamarillo was then second there, behind Pippa, I think, on Supreme Rock.
2002.
So I went in this when he was in the lead. Is suddenly a bit more pressure because I was suddenly riding a horse that I knew and everyone knew could actually win. So it was a very big year. It was also a big year because it was Athens year. Was it Athens year?
It was Athens year, yeah.
So it was all about getting a qualification for the Olympics.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, he'd had a little injury before, so I wasn't sure whether I should run him anyway. I can remember clearly panicking because it was pissing rain. And I can remember discussing with Yogi whether I should or whether I shouldn't, and Yogi came to watch him on the steeplechase to decide how he was coping with the soft ground. And I can remember setting off on the cross country. 10-minute halt was like, you know, don't you even start? Should we go somewhere else to get our qualification to get to Athens? Not go around Badminton in a bottomless bog when lots of people weren't getting round.
That's a hell of a mindset to have
so
to
the whole
overcome.
Badminton that year was quite a mindset, exactly. And I was quite in two minds, to say the least. And we decided to go for it. And of course, he popped around the cross country very happily, and yeah, he then won. But he was a horse. He won Burghley in the mud as well. He just was an amazing athlete. So when other horses could cope, they normally beat him because they normally behaved or went better or tucked their nose in better and just scored a few more points. Whereas when the chips were down, the ground was actually right. Who is coping? Who's got the most blood? Who can go? He was it because he won Burghley in a bog when he was 18. So he won Badminton that
2008,
year.
Wasn't it?
I got lots of time faults, but still less than most people. And he just cruised around and came out on top. So suddenly it was quite a relief. I think that was more, I would say, because I knew I was riding a jolly talented horse. I knew that I was riding a horse that lots of people could win on. And I just thought, oh God, I don't want to just throw it in. It's got to happen. He's been second here. Come on, it's got to happen. So it was quite a big. It was a few years later. It was 2 years later. So he hadn't done badminton I think you're right. I think 2003 he had silly injuries, so he didn't get there. So 2004 was like a big year to make happen. Anyway,
and especially in the lead up to Athens,
he pulled it off, and he was in the lead, and he was a horse that should win. So I did feel a bit of pressure that, oh God, I better not cock this up because a monkey can win badminton on his back.
I'm sure it can. Do you thrive in that pressure? Would you like going into the show jumping in the lead? Is that something
I'd much rather go in the lead and get it right than win because somebody else cocks up.
Yeah.
I think that's to be honest, I'm not fussy, but
if the win's there, will you take the win?
It's called a 3-day event, but I would say I'd rather go in. I like to win a 3-day event from start to finish.
Yes.
It hasn't happened many times, but I have done, and it's a good
hard
feeling.
thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do.
It's a good feeling. When it does happen, it's how it should be.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of those that actually you think it should be, that you would probably think, oh, there's loads of horses that have won from start to finish. And actually, there probably aren't many. I'll get the Equa Ratings lads on that one because there could be something in there.
Good stat. Yeah,
I'll get them doing some digging. From Tamarillo, there were the likes of Ballincoola became a big part of your career over the next few years. Parkmore Ed, and it was a real golden era because you had a real selection of horses. There were the likes of Coup Cœur, Mr. Dumbledore, Hidalgo. Was that Hidalgo de Donjon? Was he always called Hidalgo de Donjon?
No.
Wasn't he called Hidalgo?
I think he was called Hidalgo de Donjon. We changed it to just Hidalgo because we didn't love the dungeon bit.
No, that makes sense. I was worried about that then. I was thinking I'd missed a horse altogether. But he was a big part of your sort of those years, Macchiato as well. And it became you won Burghley again in 2005, 2007 was Burghley, 2008 was Lemouland and Burghley when Tamarillo won Burghley and actually Ballincula was second. Was there a moment that stood out for you in those years? Obviously, there was the Hong Kong Olympics as well. Was there anything that stood out for you as something that you really look back on fondly?
Yes, I think really at that stage, I just took everything. If I think about it, I had 6 4-star horses, and that to me was just how it was. That's what you worked on. That's how life was. But my goodness, I look at that now and I think how ridiculously lucky was I to have owners that sent me 6 horses. And it was very, very tough on owners if I look back at sending me a top horse that wasn't going to be a top horse because I had a better one.
Yeah.
So I think, and I'm not using him as an example, but Ballincula was a great example of a horse that he wasn't obviously the most outstanding specimen like Tamarillo or Chilly Morning or I had a young horse called Wallow, but just there were various horses that were obviously amazing. And Ballincula wasn't. He was tricky on the flat. He wasn't always very fast. He was a bit common, but his owners still had him with me. And quite often I went to a championship and he was my reserve. I won badminton on Tamarillo, Burghley on Tamarillo. He was second. It was really, really tough on them to live in that limelight. And I didn't really acknowledge that. I just kind of thought it was quite normal. You just had your horses and you rode them all to your best and your owners supported you and they were jolly lucky to be second. Not the fact that, oh my God, you won on another horse and you stopped them winning a big event because you won it on another one. It was just a stage I went through in my career when it was just so. What I expected was to have a team of 4-star horses, and it's what my sponsors were expecting. And therefore, I rode. I think some years I had 2 at Badminton, 2 at Lemouland, 2 in Kentucky in the same year.
Yeah.
And you think, Christ, and which owners go where, and who wanted to go to Lemouland, who wanted to go to Badminton. Of course, all 6 owners probably wanted to go to Badminton.
It's the balancing act, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is a balancing act. But suddenly, at the time, you think it's all quite obvious. And of course, you want to take your horse to Lemouland. You don't want to go to Badminton on that horse because he wouldn't win Badminton anyway. But they think, I've got a Badminton horse. I'm English and I want to go to Badminton. And my rider can't even take him there. So
the strength in depth of your strength, because Ballincula is an example. He won Burghley in 2005. He was second in 2008. He was an incredible horse in himself. And I suppose it's just the strength and depth. And actually, his Burghley form was very impressive. Perhaps, he had the opportunity to go to Burghley.
He did 6 Burghleys, didn't he? Not many horses did.
Yeah,
I think he did 6 Burghleys.
6 on the bounce as well.
That's not normal. But he always had somebody who was ahead of him on the team front. He went to Burghley because I had Parkmore Ed or Tamarillo or another horse to go to the championship on. And so he rather took the place of going to Burghley or going to wherever else. But I never rode him in a championship. And that, to me, I look at that, and that was really tough on the Skinners and the Paynes who owned him, to have a horse of that caliber who had won. He should have also won Badminton, but he came first and second at Burghley. He came third at Badminton, and yet he was never on a British team. That's quite tough, isn't it?
I
think that's
tough,
something that I look at now, and I think, my goodness, and they were such lovely owners and they were so supportive and they were good friends. They took it on the chin. But I think another owner could easily have thought, you know what, I'm going to give it to Ollie Townend.
Yeah, I suppose the credit goes, though, the fact that they wanted him as part of your team. You obviously got on with the horse exceptionally well.
Yes,
and
you're right. I think I got on with them and I loved the horse. And I think, therefore, they they went with what they got. But I think also they missed out on Beijing. They missed out possibly on Athens. Athens, he was gone by London. But, it's quite tough to think. And I can remember there was one year when he might have been in the British team. I think Tamerlan was not going or something. Anyway, he was very likely to go. And the day the selectors all came to watch him somewhere, he was an absolute hooligan and did a horrendous dressage and didn't perform at all to his normal, consistent way. And they therefore left me at home, so I didn't get to take him anyway. But
he said, "Take me to Burley again. I want to go back to Burley."
Exactly,
I like
was meant
it
to be.
Exactly.
He was meant to be at Burley, so he was a Burley horse, and I think that's where I got very lucky. Is I had horses that were good for teams, horses that were good for Burley, horses that were good for various events, and I was very lucky to be able to allocate the event to the horse.
Yes.
Horse's ability, because some horses are very good Burley horses and some horses aren't. But the bad Burley horses still go and win the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a problem in itself, isn't it? It's a very good problem, and I'm sure a lot of people would be like, God, I would love to have that problem. But it is a challenge in itself in sort of mapping out the right and making the right choices, because actually that you've got more opportunities to make the wrong choice.
And I just assumed in those few years that I was just lucky enough to have all the horses, and that's just how life was. When I look back now, I've just got 2 5-star horses, and I think, God, I had 6. That's just not... I just was exceptionally fortunate. Can
we talk about 2010, Cool Mountain, who actually went out to Kentucky in the spring, won Kentucky, and I think it was his debut at 5-star when he won Kentucky, but he returned to Kentucky later in the summer, so he had 2 trips to America to go to the World Equestrian Games, where he took an individual silver for you. Tell us about him, because he was a very cool horse that played a big part in one of your best individual results at championships.
Yeah, it is my best individual result at championship. He was a horse, again, I was given from Teresa Stopford Sackville, because he'd been ridden by Antoinette McEwen, who was obviously a girl and wasn't very big. And he was quite a big thoroughbred horse, but quite sluggish. And she thought he needed some man's legs. And that's the only reason he came to me, because she thought I could kick him, because he was quite a lazy chap. And he's the sort of horse that, at home, left to his own devices, he didn't turn any heads. There was nothing wrong with him, but he was just absolutely straight down the road, normal doer. He would never stand out, never stick out, never put himself forward. So I just rode him along, and I rode him around a 2-star, and I can't remember, I think he came second, and he went to a 3-star, and he might have come second at Blair. Anyway, he just ticked along, kind of, oh look, he's got another result. Oh look, another result. And suddenly he ended up being my leading horse, and I think, well, I'm going to take him to Kentucky. He's not ready for badminton anyway, so it was his first 4-star in those days. So I took him off to Kentucky, and it was the ash cloud year. And I can remember clearly we had a big debate, because he had got to America, and then the ash cloud hit, and we thought, well, how am I going to get there? Because it's not going to happen. So it was an amazing feat of contacts and friends and everything. But I got flown by a friend down, lived locally. I got thrown from here, from Dorset, down to Madrid.
Right.
And then in Madrid, there were normal planes going. So from Madrid, I then got myself to Cincinnati. And there was a big moment when I thought, well, he's gone to America. He's only a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. He's not going to win anyway. So if I don't get there, it's not meant to be. So never mind. Why don't we just bring him home? But the whole trip was supported anyway, so it's paid for anyway. So I won't go. Just bring him home, because I can't get there. Ollie Townend was trying to get there as well. It was absolute carnage. I can remember so clearly. Anyway, somehow we both got there. Mainly thanks to my friend. Ollie got from London to Paris on a train, and then got from Paris to Madrid in a taxi. Imagine
well,
that.
that was the year, I think, wasn't he
He was going to
chasing the
try and win
Grand
the Grand
Slam?
Slam. Yeah, so he was on the Grand Slam mission. I was riding Cool Mountain, who, dare I say, every Tom, Dick and Harry would have thought, well, I'd have been lucky to have been 10th. You know, I wasn't going on a Grand Slam potential winner. So I was thinking, what the hell? Why am I fussing? Just don't go. Just say, you know what? Things
It's not
happen. You
meant to
can't
be,
go.
yeah.
Not meant to
Because
be. Just
you do
moonlight.
sometimes think if there's that many obstacles in the way,
Yes,
is somebody trying to tell you something?
can't be meant to happen.
Yeah.
So I was quite relaxed. My wife was saying, for God's sake, you've got a 4-star horse ready to go. He's fit. He's in America. Get yourself there and bloody ride him. So anyway, I got there, and of course, he bloody won it. You think, well, how? You know, that was absolutely not on the agenda. He was totally stepping up, totally against some other good horses, and anyway, he won it. And it was amazing because as he won it, I got a phone call from England to say that Hidalgo, who was my badminton horse, who I thought, dare I say, was going to win badminton, he'd done the Europeans, I think, the year before, had he? And he all but won a medal. So he was, I thought he was going to win badminton, but he didn't. He went lame. So I suddenly told, oh, sorry, he's not going to go to badminton. So there I was in Kentucky thinking, goodness me, he better go well because he's my only chance of coming back to Kentucky. I haven't got any other
Yeah.
horses now. So anyway, not only did he win Kentucky, but he came back to Kentucky in the autumn, and then he was second. He was only beaten by Biocetic Sam, who
Yeah.
lots of people have been beaten by Biocetic Sam, and they're disgracing that.
No, absolutely. And he's still with you now, isn't he, Cool Mountain? He's
yeah,
still...
and he's ironically, he's now back, and he is, I'm going to say he's 20.
He is 20, yeah.
And he is, I did the virtual eventing fun thing with him because he's, his owner worries about him getting very fat and getting laminitis in the summer. So she likes him to keep on working, and he's amazingly loose and sound still. So I give people a bit of tuition on him, and they love riding him because he does a flying change and he can jump an ice fence, and he's lovely to ride. So I thought, oh, come on, pick up the reins and have a go at the 5-star test. We didn't do any winning, but he certainly did it, and it's amazing to still have him on the yard and part of the family.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and he's amazing.
What a horse to learn on.
So he's great. But 2010 was totally his year. You know, you always think horses have their time when they peak, and horses, some are 15, some are 16, some are 8, some are 10. And he totally peaked that year where he was Kentucky twice and looking amazing. And then sadly, going on, he was my big hope for riding in London at the time, and he had a stupid injury before London, so he wasn't going to get there.
Talk to me about London, because a home Olympic Games, you'd been to a couple of Olympics already, 3 Olympics already, I think, by this point. But a home Olympics is almost the dream, isn't it? Like it takes the Olympic Games to a whole new level. How was that experience? And obviously, there's a massive amount of pressure going into London. How was that from your perspective?
Yeah, I think definitely London was a career highlight. I would say, not for results, but just for what it's all about. I think to have been able to be competing in London in the British team on home soil. You were Team GB. You weren't just some equestrian team flying around the world to ride a horse. You were actually in the British team in London, where everyone was behind Team GB. So you felt a real sense of belonging, and that I think is certainly a thing I will never forget. I wasn't riding a horse, sadly, that was likely to win. He was a bit inexperienced and not quite good enough at dressage, and he got very tired in the cross country in the end anyway. But I didn't end up riding my first choice. I ended up riding, I think, my third or fourth choice, because horses had gone wrong, or things had happened. So I was so lucky to even be riding there. And now I look back at it, the whole thing again was like the theatre. It was like you were in this whole circus, and you were performing in front of a home crowd people who'd watched eventing in London never watched eventing any other day in their life ever, because it was Team GB. And being in the Olympic Village, going to the opening ceremony, driving every day in your kind of Olympic lane, going to Greenwich, riding around Greenwich. It's all still hits me as being totally surreal. And yes, I've had some amazing days eventing, and I've had great wins, and it's been very exciting, and it's been what I've done it for. But actually going to London and being in that, I just remember driving into that park and getting the horses off the lorry in Greenwich, just being like, this is just not normal. I think it was so kind of embracive rather than just being a normal championship.
Yeah, it was bigger than it would normally be.
Bigger than any championship, because it was just, when you go to Olympic Games, you're often not even in the accommodation. You're often somewhere else. You're often in Beijing. We were in Hong Kong. In Athens, we were kind of an hour out. So you often didn't even go to the opening ceremony because you were too far away, because your venue was the requirements of your venue as an event rider are so individual and different. You're not included. Whereas in London, the greatest thing was that, there was talk about London happening at Badminton or Windsor or Burghley, and who cares? But actually the fact it happened in London, in Greenwich, was just really made it happen. Yes, and nothing has ever happened in Greenwich since. And yes, loads of money was lost, I'm sure. But actually it really brought eventing to the public. It brought eventing into that Olympic.
Captured the imagination of people that had never seen it before, I think.
So I think that's really the fact we didn't do well enough, and we should have won a medal, and we could easily have won a team gold medal, and we didn't. If one person had performed a bit better, which all of us could have done, we would easily have won it. We were beaten by under 4 penalties.
And by a German team spearheaded by that pesky Labier-Statique Sam that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
It was an event actually that you went to with great mates as well, like the likes of Mary King, Tina Cook, Zara Tyndall, or Phillips.
It was a great team. We all had the time of a life there. I would say it was great. You're there with people you really got on well with, and we were a great unit. There was a real team. I think obviously it was so sad, I think I can say, not to have Pippa there.
Yeah. Well, she'd had a bit of bad luck in terms of injuries in the run up, hadn't she, which had sort of taken her out of contention.
She had a bad spell.
Yeah.
And it was sad not to have Piggy there, but Piggy was at that stage less of a friend. But if I look back, we were a really good unit, and we should have won a gold medal. But actually, winning a silver medal, it
was still the London experience, and
it was still a London experience, and we were bloody lucky to have it.
Yes, and that would be, as you mentioned, your career highlight to date. We'll say to date because it's still going.
You could say still going. I'm still dreaming.
Can I ask you about Chilly Morning? Because he was the horse that you rode at that seriously tough 2014 World Equestrian Games, where he took team silver, but individual bronze. And I actually remember your show jumping round so clearly. He was in the lead, I think, and had a pole down, which cost him the individual gold.
Yeah,
he won badminton the following year, but he was, again, a massive part of your career and a real stalwart at top level, really.
Yes, I would say, he was a truly amazing horse for me. I think he and I formed a good partnership, and he really, he would be, he'd be up there with Tamarillo. He wouldn't be as amazing, I can say that, as Tamarillo. Literally, he wouldn't have Tamarillo's movement or jump. But as a performer, funnily enough, I have I always have 3 moments I kind of, if onlys, who came that close, and 2 were on Chilly. Chilly could have given me 2 of my, what I would dream of moments that didn't happen. That was one. World Games was one. Knocking that fence down was a shame. Again, winning a bronze medal was still pretty cool. But that's a big regret. If I could change a moment, that would be one of them. My other moment was having my run out in Rio when I was in the lead,
Yeah.
because that was totally avoidable, and that was just one of those stupid moments that um, I pulled him the wrong way, and if I'd pulled him the other way, it'd have been clear and it would have been fine. He didn't really run out. There wasn't even a run out. It was just a crossing of tracks.
I think though that would probably lead us on to talk about the journey that you'd gone to get to Rio, because you can say, oh, it's such a stupid moment, but actually it was remarkable that you were even able to compete at Olympic Games, because the fall at Le Lyon at the end of 2015 was something that was very hard to come back from. And actually, I suppose Chile had won badminton that year, so he was very much in contention. He was qualified to go to the Olympics. But that was a massive personal journey to be able to even get there in the first place. And to lead the dressage was huge.
Bloody dressage. No, I think that is very true. I think it was quite a big journey. If I look at it now, and I'm nearly 5 years on, if I look back at that, it was all absolutely crazy, really. I had no idea at the time. Of course, I knew I was ill from Lyon. Of course, I knew that I was compromised. Of course, I knew that I was lucky to even be walking, let alone riding a horse. And Chile morning and going to Rio was absolutely, from the moment I regained consciousness, that's what I was doing. Didn't cross my mind that I wasn't able to jump or see a stride, or how was I going to get there. I was going to be riding in Rio. I mean, it was a no-brainer in my no-brain head. And it was extraordinary that I ever got there. How? God knows. And yes, it was a real shame it didn't quite come off for Team GB, because it could so have been different. Chile Morning, I think to this day he thinks he won. He didn't do anything wrong. He just had a technical.
Know.
He had a technical 20, and the most annoying thing of the whole games was jumping clear twice in the show jumping. I can remember when I went in to jump in that final round, just praying that he would smash all the jumps down, and that I could therefore live with the loss, as it were. And he just jumped his socks off for another clear round. And I thought, oh no, Chile, why did you do that? That just hurts. Because that was totally a rider thing. And yes, maybe I was, because I was a bit slow or a bit unreactive to that moment. But the whole Rio journey is what got me better, I think. It's why I recovered quite quickly. It's why I got back on. I can remember thinking, I've got all these targets, and just do it. And I can remember
it would have been a massive focus, because it would have been 8 months or something, and sort of that target. I mean, at Olympic Games, it's a hell of a target anyway, but the focus to have on that, do you think that really did sort of make a difference to actually where you are now?
Yeah, totally. It totally sharpened me up. I mean, I know head injuries are all different, and I'm only speaking from personal experience, but I think the most valuable thing for me was having a drive. I lost in my accident. I'd lost any interest, incentive. I had no feeling of adrenaline or passion or excitement. I'd gone very, very whatever, who cares, never mind, lucky to be here, just do it, just get on and do it. But it doesn't matter if it doesn't go well. I can remember horses making mistakes, horses not going well, and me just thinking, oh well, who cares, never mind, another day. And that is also a very important thing to keep with horses, because things do go wrong, but also you've got to have that desire to do better. And I'd lost all of that. Having Rio was like, gave me a great kick up the arse to say, better. It's got to be better and better. Come on, more, do more, work more, push yourself more. And that's what gave me the whole drive, when otherwise I'd have been sitting on the sofa having a cup of tea, thinking that, wasn't I lucky? Yeah. And I think that whole, and also I think because I knew Chile couldn't do another Olympics, I knew Chile was 16, was absolutely at the end of his career, and this was going to be his swan song. He'd won badminton, Europeans.
Well. Yeah.
He'd come third at 2 championships. This was going to be his day. So it was such a drive to make it happen. So I was jolly lucky to have that. When I look back, I think that was the only reason. I can remember riding around my first few events. I probably shouldn't have been on a horse. And I was happily going around an event, riding lovely old cool mountains, looking after me, lovely old Park Lane Hawk, all those horses that didn't mind if I made all sorts of funny mistakes and turned the wrong way and did funny things. And then suddenly, there I was going to Rio, and it just annoyingly didn't come off. It's just one of those moments it took me a long time, even though it was amazing to be there and I was lucky to be there. And my God, my horse was brilliant. It's taken me a long time to kind of go, okay, we can live with that. That hurt for a long time. And in a little way, I'm used to a bit of grief, but that was just something that I was, oh God, that was annoying. If only, because that wasn't even, that was a little bit like losing the Olympics, going the wrong way in the dressage.
Yeah. And also, I suppose the fact that, yes, it was remarkable and an incredible journey to have got there, but actually the blood, sweat and tears that had gone into getting you there actually makes it an even bigger prize to have lost.
And I think also for all the people that got me there, it was, winning a medal is a very personal thing, and it's a very personal victory, and on the day it comes off and you've done it. But this was not you've done it. This was, my wife, my psychiatrist, my physiotherapist, my brain, whatever, everyone, Kate Davis, my kind of, again, brain energizer, worker. People had put so much into making it or helping me. I just had totally let them all down as well. Whereas normally you just, okay, shit happens, move on.
I know, but if you had have said 2 weeks after your fall in Le Lyon, knowing the gravity of your injuries, that actually in 8 months' time you will make it to Rio and you will be top 12, there is still so much to take from it, and I can totally understand. But
God, it's totally right. I mean, I definitely, talking to people who surround me now, whether it's my head groom, whether it's my wife, whether it's my dressage trainer, whether it's my Kate Davis and people working with my brain, all of them were having conversations about when can we tell William that Rio is not happening.
Not going to happen. Yeah.
No one thought it could happen. No one thought it was like, my parents just, you've got to tell him to face up to it. It's no big surprise. He's just not going to do Rio. He's going to do other things maybe, but Rio's too soon. But no one ever said, you're not, which was because I was. I just thought
you were gonna make it happen. What next? Because obviously,
well, I've got 2 exciting, not so young horses anymore, so I want to win some more events.
That's what we like to hear. That is absolutely what we like to hear. Obviously Tokyo this year isn't happening. You went to the test event last year. What was your experience from that in terms of looking forward to 2021 now?
I mean, God, Tokyo will be a phenomenal event. I mean, it will be. They will do it properly. It will be an Olympics to remember for everyone. It's a magical place. Horses in Tokyo just don't quite go. I mean, the whole horsey thing in Tokyo seems completely crazy. But I think horses will cope. I think horses will go well. I think some won't. I think some won't cope with the heat. Yes, of course I dream of going there, but I'm not really in the ranking to go. I'd say I'm very much second tier. I've got 2 younger horses. Yes, they'll be a year older with it going on to 2021. But they still, I would say, need to do something fairly dramatically amazing to be selected to go. I would say
there's still time. Well, I wouldn't like to. I would not like to bet against you.
You're too kind, but of course I'll go. if suddenly something does happen. But that is not what's driving me. The other day I started talking about Paris. There are other goals. Both horses are good enough to win a big one. Probably one of them is as good as most horses. Well, as good as any horse I've ridden. So
that Little Fire.
Maybe I would say I ought to therefore get on and deliver. So I've rather been focusing on the shutdown period about just making them better and getting better and working towards a win. So where the win's going to come, Tokyo, dare I say, unlikely. Badminton, obviously, in Burley this year, no. Next year is my aim, really. I've relaxed about writing off this year, luckily, because I've got two horses that are young enough to move on. And hopefully next year, maybe like last year, I'll have one in Kentucky and one in Badminton, and who knows? We'll see what happens. But they're two good horses, and they could be up there.
I think you, William Fox-Pitt, are playing your cards very close to your chest. But we will let you have it. I have to admit that the enthusiasm still for the big wins to come is amazing. And you have 14 5-star victories, which is more than any other rider. I think the next closest is Mark Todd on 11. I want to say, I'm just going to double check. Yeah, Mark Todd on 11. Michael Young is on 10.
Yeah, so he's dangerously close, isn't he? Because he's probably got snapping. 10 more to come.
Yeah, but the list of names on this is just incredible. Andrew Nicholson, Pippa Funnell, Oliver Townend, Bruce Davidson, Andrew Hoyt, all of the big guns, and you're there at the top. So it has been an absolute...
I keep on dreaming.
Keep on adding to that tally, Will. That's what you need to do. Thank you for coming on to the Equiratings Eventing podcast. One thing to ask you before we go. We've mentioned your couple of big names to look out for next year. Have you got a young horse that our listeners can keep an eye on as well?
I've got two young horses. I'm very excited about... he's called Atlantic Vital Spark. Not a very memorable name, but he's sort of he did Blenheim last year and surprised me a lot because he was very green, but he bounced around, and I think with a bit more education he could be quite an exciting horse.
Okay.
He's going to come on and do 4-star. This year I was hoping to do a 5-star on him, but next year maybe. And then I've got a lovely young horse who I think is 9, who's called George Saurus, and he won not very excitingly, he won Tats last year, which is only a 3-star, so he only won a 3-star, but he's a smart, big, fancy horse, and
he did win it on a 20.5 dressage.
Yes, he's flash. He's flash.
Pretty good.
He's exciting. Anyway, he is a horse that could tackle the big time, so I'm going to have to keep on going, aren't I?
You're going to have to keep on at Paris. There you go. You mentioned it. Paris 2024, Will. We'll be watching this space.
I'm going to be old for Paris, but I'm old now anyway. So what's the difference? What's a few years?
What's a couple of years? It's only 3 years from the previous Olympics now.
Exactly,
so you've lost the year in there anyway. Will, thank you so much for coming on the show to talk to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we will be watching your progress. We will be cheering you on for that big win that I've no doubt will come in the next few years. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It'd be a nice dream to have another one. Certainly one with a good horse. That'd be worth it.
Absolutely, leading from start to finish.
Okay.
Absolutely, no pressure.
You're going to tell me how many people have won from start to finish.
I'll get the boys onto it. We'll get the Equiratings database into it. Yeah,
how easy is it?
Absolutely.
To start to finish? All right.
Absolutely. Listeners, we hope you've enjoyed this very, very special episode of the Equiratings Eventing podcast. We will be back very soon, so do stay tuned. But a huge thank you to Will for sharing his story with us. And don't forget, you can follow us online at Eventing Podcast. We'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to the Equiratings Eventing podcast. This podcast is available for free on iTunes, Spotify, Podcast Addict, or wherever you usually listen to your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Find us at eventingpodcast.com or search Eventing Podcast on social media.